Hello, welcome. My name is Caroline Feezel, and this is my portfolio for the projects I've done during undergrad at Texas Tech. I really didn't become passionate about interior design until I came on a tour here during high school. I got to sit down with the dean of the department and talk through what interior design was like. I got to sit in on a drafting class for a little while and very quickly fell in love with the program here. And so I am thrilled to be able to present to you today my portfolio and truly the highlight reel of the projects that I've done in my time here in this program. When I was in high school, I worked for my dad for a while and started to understand what it meant to hold a job and be responsible for things and have higher ups and whatnot. And then when I came to college after my first year of interior design here, I was given the option to either find an internship or go back to work for him. And going back to work for him did not sound like a fun thing to do during the summer. And so I pursued an internship pretty hard. And I was actually able to find 3 internships, one for each summer since I've been in college, which has been a huge blessing and the greatest learning experience I could have asked for. Those internships really showed me how all of these things that I'm doing in class really apply in real life. And so it is with great enthusiasm and excitement and true passion behind each of these projects that I'll just go ahead and walk you through my portfolio. Basically, it starts out with an index. There are 6 projects listed in this portfolio. I wanted to really highlight a lot of the work that I'm proud of, but also keep it to a minimum in a sense, so that this is not too difficult to get through and more enjoyable. So it begins with the Department of Design at Texas Tech. We designed an office space, converting a lot of the classrooms and studios and even a hallway in the first floor of the Human Sciences building into a new set of offices, conference room, break room, library, all those types of things that are needed for the offices in the Department of Design. You can see that my concept was very much earthy tones. And the goal with this was because the landscape and the agriculture of West Texas are incredibly iconic, and they play a huge part into the architecture, but also the culture of Texas Tech University and the campus. And so incorporating those things, such as those really earthy tones, the reds and browns and oranges, but also things like circles. Circles became a huge part of this space, as you'll see throughout, and I'll explain more on the next page. But we have the floor plan and the concept on this first page. And so you can see that circular motion happening with the floor plan, where you have these smaller rooms in the middle and then kind of a hallway space that wraps around it. At the back, there's a gallery space, and at the front, there's a reception area. And so at the reception area, guests are welcomed in and able to make appointments with faculty and things like that. And then at the back is kind of a highlight of the projects done through the department. The reception area is very specifically done in sort of a semicircle way with the desk. You'll see the Department of Design on a glass panel in front of that brick wall, sort of glowing from underneath. The multi-use offices can be for grad students, they can be for the faculty to use if needed, and they all serve different little purposes. On the next page, I have highlighted the offices and the conference room mostly. There are executive offices and there are general staff offices. And so, as you can imagine, the executive offices are a little bit bigger, have a little bit more natural light and more space to sit. And then the staff offices, slightly smaller, slightly less natural light, those sorts of things. The conference room seats 16 people, which is what was called for in the program. And there is obvious circular motion going there with the rounded back chairs, the circular lights suspended from the ceiling. So on the right side, you see a visual interpretation of the foundational beliefs of the department. We were instructed to design a screen that could somehow be implemented into the project, whether it be through shade and shadow or through materials and whatnot. This screen represents the process of what the interior design department stands for and does for us as students. And so on the left side of the screen, you can see a tumbleweed that gradually breaks down, becomes less dense, and becomes a crop circle, representing the process of going from all walks of life, all over the world, all different types of people and ideals into this one system. We all get on track in the Department of Design. We all take the same classes and are on the same track. And then you can see how the crop circle gradually becomes a windmill, representing how we gradually then take our own paths out from there and go out into the world with much more organization and knowledge and understanding. So the second project that I have in here is the Mills Residence. And the Mills Residence was obviously a residential project. We designed this home really with the intention of harping on aging in place and sustainability. This family really wanted to stay in their home for the long haul. They had 2 young children at the time, and then they were really passionate about sustainability and green living and being really conscious of the environment. And so you can see how I have incorporated this birds, bees sort of concept, used a lot of warm colors, a lot of natural elements here. The goal here was to really bring in that warmth of the outside, which also kind of coordinates with the warmth of hospitality, allowing these people to invite others in, to make their space accommodating for any type of person and all of those values that they hold. And so you can see on the right all of their requests for different types of rooms, and then the rendered floor plan of those different rooms and of the whole house. You can also see the exterior, how it's just very homey, very classic, not too showy, very practical, but very welcoming at the same time. And so on the second spread of this project, you can see that basically, oh, too far. Basically, we have the kitchen elevation, the office guest room, and the window seat. And those are areas that I specifically chose to highlight because I felt like they were of most importance in this floor plan. The kitchen is a space where they like to spend time as a family with their daughters, and was really an area where we were able to incorporate a lot of ADA. And so you can see the dishwashers on either side of the sink there that are small and they're higher up off the ground, so you don't have to bend quite as far to do the dishes. And that would certainly be of use to anyone who is disabled or ill in some way and would have a hard time bending over. The office slash guest room will operate as an office most of the time, but you can sort of see in that image that the Murphy bed in the middle comes down to make the space more of a guest room, and the desk and chair can be moved. The window seat in the living room is just a special element because this family really enjoys reading. And not only is it a fun reading nook, but it also offers a little bit more seating in the living room. Next to these images, you can see the efficiency apartment where their mother would be living, who is currently in a wheelchair. There were several specific considerations here for her to be able to use the space and feel comfortable in it, but you can see the same type of dishwasher situation. And you can also see the small circles across the floor plan that show a 5-point turn radius, 5-foot turning radius, so that she can get around more easily. The third project is this bistro, and the bistro was much more about concept than necessarily about the practical function of the space. Concept was really highlighted and creativity was really pushed in this project. And so there were very few limits, and I ended up going with this idea of a jungle. I mean, when you think about the city, we all kind of consider it the concrete jungle. And so this bistro in the middle of the city, I wanted to incorporate a little bit more nature, make it a little bit more fun, feel like almost an oasis from the city around you. And so you can see images of different animal life. You can see leaves and trees and the Edison bulbs that would be featured in each of the lighting features. But on this next page, there is a little bit more detail involved. So the graphic that you've seen throughout this project was done through quite the process. We began by taking pictures of Texas Tech's campus and creating a collage of them based on the theme that our group was assigned. And so my group was assigned proportion, and we took images of Texas Tech's campus and the architecture around, which explained proportion well, and essentially made a collage. We then took that collage and traced over it and traced over that and traced over that until we had an image that really was not the same. Then we practiced coloring that image with shade and shadow and making it look like different textures and whatnot. And at the end of the day, this organic graphic is what was derived from the tracings that I had done through that project. And I was able to incorporate colors that really highlighted my concept into that, and then used it mostly as a wallpaper throughout. But you can also see it here on this napkin design. And so there's a bar, there's small dining at the back. There's lots of different little nooks and crannies in this restaurant. The fourth project, actually, kind of moving on from this really concept driven project, is much more of a realistic project. There were a lot of really logical structural issues with this prefab family home. And so the goal here was to take these dimensions, these very set dimensions that you see next to the concept images, and use sort of those squares to create a home out of. And the home had to have 3 bedrooms, 1 on the first floor, 2 on the second floor, 2 bathrooms, a kitchen, living area, a terrace on the second floor. And these all had to be incorporated, reducing the amount of walls that would be cut down in between these boxes, if that makes sense. And so in this project, it was also important that we only sketch. We did not do anything on the computer with this project. And so it's really cool to look through these images and see really how kind of sketchy and organic they are, even though the ideal for this project was very structured, very set, very practical, very much black and white, if you will. And so you can see here the elevations of the exterior of the home. There were several windows incorporated so that when you were inside, you didn't feel like you were in a box, but that you were really in more of sort of an indoor-outdoor space. You can see the master bedroom, living area, and kitchen that were drawn for perspectives in this project. And I think that they really highlight well what this space was intended for, really the simplicity of it. There's not a lot of detail. There's not a lot of fluff surrounding anything, but they're very practical. The next project, moving on from the very structured, prefab, very understandable project, is Texas Tech's campus in Junction. And so this is really kind of the same idea, where we took a lot of the same boxes and squares and dimensions and tried to be as consistent as possible throughout for the sake of the budget of this project. The budget wasn't necessarily defined, but it was known to be very strict. And so with this campus, the concept sort of became, how do we connect this building more to the outdoors? How do we keep it really simple and really straightforward? But bring a little bit more life to it. And so the concept became a magnifying glass that had kind of been done away with. It's an old tool. Lots of people don't necessarily use them anymore or really think about them as a practical tool. But when you bring it up out of the dust, a lot of them really are beautiful, kind of vintage, antique pieces. And they really are still useful. So this is the same idea that was kept throughout the Junction project. It was really incredible to be able to do a lot of research on manufacturers that were near the site for the sake of sustainability and cutting down costs with moving things around and bringing materials to the site. You can see the Welcome Center uses a lot of concrete in the floor, concrete in the welcome desk, and then tons of windows surrounding the area to, again, connect with the outdoors at the highest level possible. The executive offices and the classrooms were also really important and were kept near the Welcome Center area. And so that's kind of why these are all on the same spread for the most part. There were additionally some hotel rooms, student housing, an outdoor entertainment area that were all also incorporated and were more of living spaces to be dealt with. And these also really incorporated this idea of connecting to the river that passes through Junction, the trees that have been on the site forever. I took a little trip down to the river early one morning while we were kind of scouting out the area and discovered some tags that were nailed to some of the trees with numbers on them. And apparently they were used back in the, I think 50s or 60s is what we kind of decided, to do research on those trees and to know which was which and see the development of it. And so on the different hotel rooms and student housing rooms, there will be circular tags that mimic that as the door number signs. And so little elements like that were just incorporated throughout that not only were able to keep from going too far with anything too extravagant or too many details, but really hold to what the campus stood for and the importance of it and the relevancy of it for Texas Tech. The final project in this portfolio is our collaboration project that we did our final year of school. We broke up into groups and were given a program for the Turning Point Community Church in Lubbock, Texas. They were seeking to add on to their current building because they're just outgrowing it so fast. And we're hoping to add a sanctuary, baptistry, office spaces, a lounge and community area, and then really just other spaces that would help make this feel more like a community center, more like they could use it on a weekly basis or on a daily basis rather than a weekly basis. Really spend a lot more time here. And so my group and I decided to do a little bit more research on the church itself, what they stood for, who they are as a people, what they would want to see about their characteristics really manifested in this design of this building. And so we ended up coming up with their values, which were to plant, to root down, to build up and grow. And they use a lot of agricultural terms. And also their colors that they had used throughout their website were blue and green. And so we came up with this idea of a tree that really digs its roots deep into the ground and builds up from the center, from the trunk, and then has branches that spread off of it. And so through this idea, we came up with putting the sanctuary in the center of the building and having everything else build off of that, because the sanctuary, the main worship space, the gathering space where the preaching is done, is really the heart of the church. And so surrounding that, there are lounge areas, there's a cafe, there's a baptistry in the community area. You can see that from the floor plan, but there are also several renderings that were done of the sanctuary, common area, community space, cafe, the baptistry. You can see the use of faux grasses along some of the walls. You can also see the design of the sanctuary from the common area, looking over at the exterior of the sanctuary, that it was really made to mimic a greenhouse. The cafe also is meant to look sort of like a farmer's market. The community flex space has a lot of windows and garage doors that open up to allow to the outside. The sanctuary really has a very high ceiling. The baptistry has a tree growing out of the water, which is really symbolic. And so this concept was really fleshed out throughout the project in all kinds of detail. This is a project that I am incredibly proud of, not only because of how it turned out, but because of the team that we were able to create through the class. So this is my portfolio for my undergraduate degree at Texas Tech University. I appreciate you so much taking the time to look through it and let me explain it to you. It has been an honor to be a part of this program, and I'm really excited that you were able to look through this through my perspective.